All right, go. Thank you.
Got it. How do I get the people next to me to the line with it? Oh, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Oops. So let me go back. This is my, thank you very much for having me again tonight. It's always a pleasure to chat with you all. And it was nice the last January, February, my husband and I were in Florida, and I spent an awful lot of time birding, at least in January, with my pals there at Orange Audubon Society. So Susan and Kathy, it was great. And anyone else that I met who was listening in, thanks and welcome to the program. So Panama. I went on a birding trip to Panama in October of 2015. This is an image of Canopy Tower, which I'll talk to you about in a little bit, where we actually stayed. The Panama Canal is back here, if you can see my pointer going through, so we could see the canal from the tower. So anyway, I had done an awful lot of domestic birding, and I decided in 2015 I was going to take my first international trip. And I looked into a number of locations. Trinidad and Tobago, they speak English there. That's a plus. Costa Rica, it's very tourist friendly. And then my friend Jan Auburn, who was also from Lorain County, where I used to live, shared an email with me about a trip to Panama with this tour group called Saberwing Nature Tours. It had an incredible itinerary and an amazing bird checklist. Let me read the first full day of birding. This is off of the itinerary. Just the morning. This is all they did, what they were planning to do the morning. Okay. This morning, we won't be able to resist getting up at dawn as the mantled howler monkeys roar in the distance. From the observation deck, with a hot cup of coffee or tea in hand, we will watch the mist rise from the valleys surrounding the tower as the morning bird activity begins. Red lord and mealy parrots fly over the valleys, and scaled pigeons perch in the treetops. Up close, golden-hooded palm and plain-colored tanagers, fulvous-vented euphonias, and green honey creepers feed in the cecropia trees. Green shrike vireo, squirrel cuckoo, black-cheeked and cinnamon woodpeckers, masked totira, black-breasted puffbird, cocoa woodcreeper, and many others may be visible. We will scan the distant treetops for blue cotinga, gray-headed kite, and crane hawk. It's the start of hawk migration season, so keep an eye out for migrating Mississippi kites, turkey vultures, and broad-winged and Swainson's hawks. That was the morning itinerary. I read this and I was starting to drool. My heart was racing. I only recognized the last 4 birds. The rest of them were all brand new to me. So I was hooked. The checklist included 614 possible species. I went through that, compared it with my current list. I only had 190 of those. So that left a possibility of 424 lifers, potential lifers, egad. So more on that in a bit. So why do you go to Panama? Well, as they all say, location, location, location. It's the most eastern Central American country. It connects Costa Rica and Colombia. With Colombia, it's this little skinny country. It serves as a funnel. It's got it circled here. Size-wise, it's a little smaller than South Carolina. but it has nearly the same number of bird species that the entire ABA has. The ABA, Panama has 987 species. The ABA at the time had 993 species. Now, for you that may not be a birders, the ABA is the American Birding Association. It includes North America, the US, Canada, and Alaska. Everything north of Mexico, but not Hawaii. It has since added Hawaii to that list, but at the time, it did not. So essentially the same number of species. The timing was October, which is fall raptor migration. It's that last little bit of country, so it acts like a funnel for birds that don't want to fly over open water. They fly over the land, like a little land bridge. They took American dollars. The water, food was pretty safe, no medical warnings. It sounded like it had it all. And I get a number of bird travel newsletters, and I'd gotten one after the trip. I got one from Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours, Vent, and their little quote about Panama being the hottest destination in Central America. Well, it is. It's true to that claim. Oh, Saber-Wing Nature Tours. This was my first tour. I've now traveled twice with them. This is a Indiana-based company, fairly small, and it was fairly new at the time, co-owned by Rob Ripma, who is a board member of Black Swamp Bird Observatory, located here in Ohio, up at McGee Marsh, which is about an hour from me. And the trip was going to be co-led by actually a friend of mine, Larry Richardson. He's a retired director of the Lake Erie Nature and Science Center that's based in Bay Village, one of the suburbs of Cleveland. So at least I knew I knew Larry, I got to know Rob, and then my friend Jan and I decided, why not? All the in-country based plans were taken care of by the Canopy family. This is a Panama Eco Tour Nature Company. They handled all the in-country arrangements. We stayed at their two of their locations. We stayed at 5 nights at Canopy Tower and 5 nights at Canopy Lodge. They have since added another location that's farther east towards Columbia called Canopy Camp. I've never been there. It's on my list of someday I would like to go there. So my first time for international travel while birding. So I took a lot of pointers and I learned a lot. You pack light, you use washable synthetics because you can wash them out and they're usually dry in the morning. Wool socks, no cotton. They take forever to dry. Boots, we wore boots. Sandals for dinner, field clothes, dinner clothes. I took my iPhone, I put it in airplane mode. I looked into how do I communicate at home? Do I buy a SIM card with international calling abilities? And realized, again, by talking with friends, that my family all had iPhones. The locations all had Wi-Fi. I could FaceTime them. I could text them. I could keep in touch with the family. And I also could do Facebook posting. So I became known as the queen of the Facebook posts for this trip, but maybe more on that later. I didn't have a good camera at the time. I used my iPhone, and our guide was a whiz at digiscoping with our phones. I do need to say that a number of the bird photos in this talk, I actually borrowed from the Canopy company. They have a wonderful naturalists that are taking pictures all the time, and they were more than generous in letting me use some of their photos for my talk. October's rainy season, but we really had no problem with that. However, it was very humid. Everything got very damp. we'd get together every night to do our checklist. Our checklist was paper, and it was just felt like wet paper. But so here's a little view of the central Panama, kind of this little kink up here. Panama City is along the Pacific Ocean here. We flew into Panama City, and then we spent 5 days where this circle is. This is Canopy Tower, the Canopy Tower area. The canal goes along here. We used this as our lodging for 5 nights. We took day trips in and around. We spent a day over here at the Sierra Azul. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Here's the image on the right. Canopy Tower again is circled. And then we did a number of the locations around here, the ammo dumps, the ammo pond, the Chargas River, Pipeline Road. We spent a whole day there. Anyway, we spent, like I said, we spent 5 days here, and then we'll talk about the rest when we get there. So our basic early itinerary, we arrived, we were transported to the tower. The first full day, we spent the morning just birding the road up to the tower. The third day, we went to the Pipeline Road, and we did the high altitude locations next. Then we spent the morning in downtown Panama City. They have this amazing national park, the Metropolitan Natural Park there. Did a few other things, kind of catching up on birds that we missed. And then we went to Canopy Lodge, which we'll cover in a bit. So Canopy Tower, interesting place. This is a former US radar tower. It was built in 1965 by the US Air Force to house a souped up radar system. Canopy Tower once played an important part in guarding the canal. In the mid-'80s, it became part of a network of radar systems used to detect drug-carrying aircraft in Central America. It fell empty in 1995, transferred back to the Panamanian government under the terms of the Canal Treaty. A few years later, Raul Arias de Parra transformed it into the current Eco Lodge. Currently has approximately 35 acres within this Soberania National Park. It was about an hour drive from the airport, close to some really great birding locations. The top deck is above the canopy, so you could get some incredible views. We had this bird mobile that took us all over the place, and had all of our meals and things were taken care of through here. So once you walked in, the main entrance is down here at the base, and you walk in, and there's exhibits and an information desk, and there's a gift shop. Then there's stairs along the side that kind of wrap around the circular structure itself. The first floor were single rooms. And then the next floor up, the second floor, were the double rooms. And they had rooms with twin beds, which is obviously what we got. And then they had a couple rooms that had double beds. We had our own bathrooms. We had our own shower. It wasn't air conditioned. We had windows, screens, and fans and whatnot. Top enclosed floor was the common area. There was a gathering space. There was a very moist library. We'd use it every once in a while, but the books were always pretty damp because of the humidity. The kitchen was behind this one area, this wall, where the steps then take you up to the tower. we had our dining area to the right, more seats. There were, it was just very comfortable. The windows, at night, they would put screens up, but all during the day and in the evening hours, they would take the screens out and you were eye level to the trees and plants all around it. And at night, you'd get bats flying through, which was okay. It was interesting. They were looking for the bugs, and you'd get some geckos come in and hang out near the lights to go after the insects and whatnot. But there really wasn't, I shouldn't say too much about insects. There wasn't an insect problem at all. I was concerned about mosquitoes, and that wasn't any issue. So then if you go up on the top level, here we are. You are above the canopy, which was just amazing. You could see for miles. You could hear things calling, and we'd hear the tinamou calling early in the morning. We never did see them, but you could hear things, and it was a 360 degrees around this ball. Just amazing, just a really, really cool place. So just a few of the birds that we saw from the tower. These photos were taken just through the windows on the common area. We've got a black-cheeked woodpecker, one of the puff birds. This is the black-breasted puff bird. And Susan, you'll know this. Here's a female summer tanager. This is feeding on a cecropia tree. These are the fruits of the tree, and you can see the birds come up and they just eat all this stuff out. So they would you'd see things, like I said, through the windows, just eye level, perfect. And I actually took pictures of these with my cell phone. So these were easy to take. So the first full day, we spent the morning birding this road that takes you up to the tower called Semaphore Hill. It's about a mile long from top to bottom. We birded for about 3 hours and only went about halfway, seeing lots of things, stopping frequently, and just being immersed in tropical Central America. My first experience, and it was everything was new, everything was wonderful. The next full day, we went to Pipeline Road here on the right. Pipeline Road is interesting as well. It's approximately 10 miles long. It's one of the best places to see neotropical birds, with a species list exceeding 500. Originally constructed as an asphalt road to service a pipeline that was built to cross the isthmus during World War II. But it was never used. The pipeline was never used. The road has since gone into more of a gravel. It's the asphalt has crumbled into gravel, but it's surrounded by nature. It's not an open road. It's controlled access. We could stop wherever we wanted. We hear things. It was just pretty amazing. Some of the birds we saw on the approach, we saw this rufescent tiger heron, just an amazing looking heron. And we found the lineated woodpecker, about the size of our pileated, however you pronounce, how you personally pronounce it. And then flower wise, this is just one of the birds of paradise flowers and attracts many birds. We were on Pipeline Road. We drove in this and rode in this vehicle. It was a truck with a sitting area in the back. That's the birdmobile. So here's our group. Larry's on the left, then Jan and me. Here's Rob. And then Nancy and Marcia were a couple of birders from Indiana that Rob brought in on the trip. Our guide is Eliezer here. Eliezer Rodriguez. And they brought out picnic tables with tablecloths. Here we are stopping for lunch. And It was always some sort of hot meal with hot drinks and cold drinks, and they took very good care of us. Just one of the cool plants we saw along the pipeline. And then this hanging structure is actually a termite nest. We saw many of those in the rainforest. The day that we went to the little higher elevation, we went to Sierra Azul, which is about 2,500 feet, and Sierra Jeffy, which is about 3,300 feet. Cloud forest areas east of Panama City. Hummingbird heaven. Up to 17 species in this area. We saw 13. Some of the birds, this central picture is the chestnut-capped warbler. From one of the hummingbirds, this is a white-necked Jacobin. I've got a little video to show you. This is the Jacobin here. It's very white on the belly and tail, and I will show that in a minute. Here is a crowned wood nymph on the feeder. We have one of their endemics, this striped-cheeked woodpecker. An endemic is a species that is only found in a certain location, so within a country. So this woodpecker is only found in Panama. So it's one of their endemics. And then one of the toucanettes. This is the yellow-eared toucanet. So I've got this little video. We're looking at a variety of hummingbirds coming to this feeder. The Jacobin I mentioned. This little light bluish colored one is the green hermit. We're very excited about that, if you can, when I play that. And then there's a bronze-tailed plumulateer. And you can tell that one when you see them up close because they have pink feet like bubblegum. So let's. Two Jacobins flying around. Here comes the hermit. Yep. They are just dive bombing. There's the hermit right in front and center. Plumulateer with bubblegum legs. Just amazing, just amazing. So the Metropolitan Natural Park, this was in downtown Panama, or we could see downtown Panama. It was fairly close to the city. It's 655 acres. Pacific dry forest region. Was very hilly. It's the only tropical forest park located within a major metropolitan area in Latin America. Some of the birds that we saw there on the left here is a whooping motmot and a yellow-backed oriole, and then the common putu on its day roost. This is a nighttime feeder, a dusk nocturnal feeder, but they roost during the day, and they just look like these dead tree stumps, and they just look like part of the tree. They're just really cool to find. I was in Costa Rica last fall, and we actually found one at night that was actually hunting, and they have greeny yellow eyes with black irises, just crazy looking. This guy was obviously sleeping, big mouth here in the front. They're insect eaters. So the morning we were leaving to go to Canopy Lodge, we all got a group shot. So here we are, Larry, Jan, Marcia, Nancy, Rob, me, and Eliezer, before we left the tower. So we moved from Canopy Tower, and we went to Canopy Lodge, which is more in the central area of Panama. The nearest town is El Valle. It's located within the caldera of a collapsed volcano. This is a vacation area. There were lots of fancy homes there. A lot of people come there as vacation place. There's a Canopy Adventure Park. We did some birding there, and we birded around again. Lots of different spots to and from. We used Canopy Lodge as our base. So we did, like I said, the first day we did a number of spots around Canopy Lodge, the grounds, Las Minas Trail, Cara Iguana, Millionaire Road. These are all areas within and around El Valle. We took a day where we drove down to the Pacific lowlands, down to the coast. We did some more things around the Canopy Lodge area. Then we took a day, we went up to Altos del Maria, which was a very high elevation spot to get some of the high elevation species. Then our last day, we picked up a few things that we had missed in the area, and then we returned to Panama City and actually toured the Miraflores locks, which was pretty interesting. So Canopy Lodge. This was about a 2-hour drive from Canopy Tower. This was built about 10 years ago. The Canopy folks built this from scratch. It's like an HGTV location. It was nice. We parked our cars over on the in this little parking area, and then we had to walk across this bridge where there was a little creek or stream to get to the lodge. It was just lovely. And like I said, nearby was this Canopy Adventure. At this location, if you follow any of the Cornell feeder cams, they have one called the Panama Fruit Feeder. It's located at this lodge. It's we'll see the location in just a minute. This is inside as we were facing the lodge. It's all open air. We have a gathering space. We have a dining space. The feeder cam is over here, the feeding station. They had like captain's chairs you could sit in and just watch the birds come in. That was a really cool place. It also had a very humid library, but good to have if you needed some resources. Our rooms were very nice, very plush, private baths. We had our own little porches overlooking thick vegetation. We didn't spend much time here because we were out doing a lot of things, but it was still just a very, very luxurious place in the tropics. So the day that we went, I mentioned we went up to this Altos del Maria. It was considered a mountaintop resort. It was really a very odd location. There was one big house or mansion, hundreds of lots with numbers, and I think a number of them had been sold. I don't recall seeing too many other houses. There was an entrance gate. You had to pay a fee to get in. You had to have permission. There were lawn care workers working, planting flowers and mowing with weed whackers because there's no flat ground. Mowers wouldn't work. But you go there for the high elevation species like this snow-capped hummingbird. Very cool. This is the male, bright white forehead patch, just a dark colored hummingbird, just beautiful. One of the rather odd things was they had built this little putt-putt course. My son is a golfer, so I took a few pictures of it. It was so spongy. The grass was so spongy that I don't know how anybody could golf there, but for those who ever wanted to golf that would occasionally move in, maybe they were prepared. We did see a spotted barbtail though nearby, so there were some good things to do as we were walking around. There was also this interesting lake that had a concrete trail that went around the lake and back into the forest, where we saw a couple of Antpittas. To get to this location, to carry all of us, we had to take 2 4-wheel drive vehicles to maneuver the steep roads to get up there. 3,800 feet up in the air, Altos del Maria. Considered a mist-shrouded mountains, a cloud forest habitat. So this, I don't know how this is the trail that went around the pond and then the lake and then went back into the rainforest. It was concrete. And we were all just imagining how they would have built this. But one of the cool things about it was that we got 2 different Antpittas that we saw. This is a stock photo of the streak-chested Antpitta. I don't even know if we could get a good look at this guy. The other one was the black crown. If you can just imagine, it's right here in the middle of the picture. Eliezer got his scope on it. I don't know how. He was just incredibly skilled at getting a scope on a bird that was in the forest none of us could find. And then we'd look through the scope and say, oh, okay. But you can just see its eye right here and its scaly breast. That was just an amazing thing for him to find. So as I mentioned earlier, the original checklist had 614 species. Our entire group got 400. I kept my own list. I had 383 with 272 lifers. Wow, that was pretty amazing. 14 species of mammals, 8 species of reptiles and amphibians, fascinating insects like this blue morpho here on the right, blue morpho butterfly, helicopter dragonflies, which were just cool to watch. I have a lot of house plants here in my home, and I saw a whole bunch of them growing wild out in Panama, which was pretty cool. Ants, we'll talk about ants in a little bit. This bird here at the bottom, this is a lot of people have spark birds that get them interested in birding. This was at the top of my list, the bird that I wanted to see when we were in Panama. This is a sunbittern. They are so cool. They nest there by Canopy Adventure, by Canopy Lodge. After we saw this one, we came back and we were sitting around, and this is no surprise, any of you that know me, I actually started to cry. Yes, I was so taken aback by that. So yeah, it was very cool. Now, we didn't just look at birds, some of the mammals we saw. Here's a Jeffrey's tamarin. Here's a kinkajou. I'd always heard of kinkajous, but never seen one, which was pretty cool. We saw both sloths. This is the brown-throated 3-toed sloth and the Hoffman's 2-toed sloth, and the mantled howler monkey. These guys woke us up every morning when we were at Canopy Tower, just hooting away in the background. We saw some variety of insects and snail, the cool snail. The insects we saw were pretty amazing, colorful, big, just incredible variety. Some of the reptiles we saw were pretty neat, and amphibians. This one on the top left, this is a bacillus lizard, a common bacillus lizard. They call it the Jesus Christ lizard because it has an ability, when it's running, it can run across the top of water. It's pretty cool to see. It's got these huge toes that help it as it's doing that. And interesting story, this is a fer-de-lance. If you know anything about reptiles, this is a pretty highly venomous snake. It's referred to as the ultimate pit viper. You see that triangular shaped head? We were at Canopy Lodge, and half of the group had gone back to their cottages. Jan and Rob and I think we're still in the common area, either chatting on Facebook or on our texting, or I was probably working on a Facebook post. And I think Nancy came back out and said, we have this snake in front of our door. So we all ran to see what it was. And here this little brown snake was all curled up, must have been about, 1.5 feet long. And we said, oh my gosh, we all took pictures. We thought it was a fer-de-lance, but we took pictures and checked with the people later, with the naturalists later. And then we took a long stick and shoot it off into the woods to get it away. But pretty cool to see. We did keep our distances, but pretty neat. I'm a sucker for good plants, especially orchids. We saw lots of cool variety of species, orchid-wise. And now some of what we saw, if you want to break it down into groups: herons, raptors, shorebirds, hummingbirds, antbirds, I'll talk about those in a bit, flycatchers, tanagers, orioles, just lots of big numbers. The bird here on the right is one of the hummingbirds. This is the white-tipped sicklebill. For the trip, this was the 100th life bird that I saw on the trip. So it got high marks. It's a very interesting hummingbird in that it has this extremely curved and not a really long bill, but extremely curved. It's because it feeds on this particular bird of paradise flower. Bird of paradise flowers can either come up from the base where the plants are, or they hang down. And this is one that hangs down. And so it has a pretty angular flower. Well, the sicklebill can actually feed on this. And that's what it's, we camped out a few times around these flowers looking for the bird to come up, and that's when we saw it. Now, I mentioned 24 tanagers. Here's half of them. We had the bay-headed up here, the golden-hooded, the silver-throated, the tawny-crested. They're all very well named, don't you think? The emerald, the plain-colored, the gray-headed, the blue-gray, the white-shouldered, the flame-rumped, the crimson-backed, and the palm. Just such a variety. They consider the tropical tanagers as the warblers of the tropics. You birders out there, you know what I mean by that. Spring warblers. Just think tanagers in the tropics. One other cool family that I always like are the toucans or the barbets. And we saw a nice number of those. Here's the keel-billed toucan. That's the Fruit Loop toucan. And the emerald toucanet here on the top right. Here's one of the barbets, the spot-crowned barbet, the collared aracari, and the yellow-throated toucan. Very, very loud, very colorful, very obvious birds. You see them and they're great to photograph. Now, another cool family of birds are the mannequins. These are the moonwalkers. If you are of my age and you were a fan of Michael Jackson, these guys moonwalk. Just Google that on YouTube. You'll find mannequins moonwalking, and it's a display tactic that they use to woo the females. But we saw at least these 6. The golden-headed, the lance-tailed, the blue-crowned, the white-ruffed, the golden collared, and the red capped. Like I said, these are all males. The females are very drab looking because they blend in with the area where they nest, so they don't stick out. But the males are very flashy and bright, and yeah, Google their displays. It's pretty cool. Owls. I like owls too. And we got these three, which were cool. The mottled owl, the spectacled owl, and the crested. These are all on their day roosts. We found these when we were at Canopy Lodge. And we found them thanks to other naturalists that were out that knew where their roosts were and where and gave us permission and or let us to find them. Now there's a group of birds, a very social group of birds called the Oropendolas. On our trip, we saw the chestnut-headed Oropendola here in the middle. They're very social in that they nest in colonies. They weave these huge nests. They're kind of like an oriole's nest, but on steroids. The females weave them, these pendulous hanging nests, and they attach them to very thin branches away from predators like snakes or opossums, but they don't mind being near bees or wasps because they go after the bot flies, which are bad news for nests. The birds, the females get on the same nesting cycle. They copulate with the same male. It's kind of like his own little harem. And they return to the same tree year after year. Could be about 1 male to 5 females. So this particular tree, I counted 18 to 20 nests. So probably about 4 different males had been using this with their mates. Like I said, this was in October, so they'd already done their nesting season was done, but the nests were still, some of them were still up in the tree. This one that Larry's holding had fallen down, so we could pick that up and explore it. Now, we had some really cool, what I call Nat Geo moments, National Geographic moments. We found a hummingbird bathing in a pond. We saw an ant thrush bathing. And then we saw this green vine snake eating a clay-colored thrush. This was way up in the air. We heard this commotion, kind of the mobbing sound of other birds. They got pretty excited because this snake was there. And then we noticed that it was eating this thrush. Let me play the video. Bob is explaining how the mouth of the snake expands so that it can swallow this bird, and the jaws come unhinged so that they can expand out to swallow the bird that they're eating, or whatever they're eating, in this case, the bird. Just amazing. We had a scope on it, and we had several people filming. And afterwards, we did some more birding and then came back and looked up, and here was the snake up in the tree. It was done eating, but there was this big spot in its belly or in its body where it had gotten the bird all the way in and was taking a break. One of the nearby life birds that we saw in the same vicinity was this boat-billed heron, which was pretty neat to see. There was a pond behind us behind where we were watching the thrush. Oops. Oops. All right. I mentioned ants. In the tropics, there's a really cool bird-ant relationship, and consequently, there's a whole family of birds that are that are in this grouping, the antbirds, they call them. There are antbirds, there are Antpittas, there are ant shrikes, ant vireos, ant thrush, ant tanager, ant wrens. This one on the right is one of the ant thrushes. The relationship is that first, there are a variety of ants in the tropics, but there's this group, there's the army ants that do form swarms, and they're a very nomadic ant. You came to a bird talk, you're learning about ants. They're very nomadic. They move from place to place. They'll go to an area and they'll get all the food, and then they'll move over and go to another area. They form these little bivouacs around the queen. And when she's laying eggs, they move a little more. When the eggs when the eggs hatch and they have to get lots of food for these growing ants, then the army ants go out and form these swarms, and they're going through the jungle, the rainforest, looking for anything in their way, mainly arachnids, cockroaches, spiders, whatever, any kind of insect that they can find. Now, these insects obviously don't want to be caught by ants, so they're jumping and flying out of the way. Well, these birds, these ant birds, they're not eating the ants, they're eating the insects that jump out of the way of the army ant swarms. So you've got all kinds of birds going after these insects and bugs and whatnot. Funny thing is that there is also a group of butterflies that they don't taste so good, so they're kind of like the monarch viceroy, that they have bad, they just don't taste good, so nobody goes after them. Well, they follow the ant swarms too, because they eat the bird droppings. It's fascinating stuff. So when we were out looking for, when we were on Pipeline Road, we were looking for ant birds. We were looking for army ant swarms. We found one small one, which was nice. And we had several ant birds that showed up in that area. Now, I have a picture here of, this is obviously not an ant bird, this bird on the left. This is a barred forest falcon, because of course you've got all these ant birds going after the insects, and you have to have something going after the birds. So we have barred forest falcons, and some of the other, they're like the Cooper's hawks or the sharp-shinned hawks that go after the forest birds. So yes, we do have a balance there. So when we were at Canopy Lodge, we were looking for army ants. We came back late one day and there was this line. They weren't swarming, but they were moving. And they were going across the bridge that went into Canopy Lodge. And they were around a bug that they were eating. So at least we got to see some kind of close up. Then when we were wandering around the grounds, we were looking for swarms. We didn't find too many swarms per se, but they were always on the move, and they liked walking on these roots that were exposed because they're up out of the dry area. So it was pretty cool to find, looking for those. So just a variety of ant birds that we saw. Up top left, spot-crowned ant vireo, the barred ant shrike, the bicolored ant bird, the spotted ant bird, the ocellated ant bird, the fasciated ant shrike, and the chestnut-backed ant bird. All slightly different, all going after different insects. And again, they were, you wanted to find these ant swarms in hopes of then finding the ant birds that were attracted to them. Very cool. So army ants. I also got the biggest kick out of leafcutter ants. We saw them everywhere. This was when we were at the park, Metropolitan Natural Park in Panama City. They were collecting leaves. They seemed to have a little staging area. Then they were going across and trying to get in the hole over here. And this guy in the middle, I thought he was a little more of an overachiever. I'm not quite sure how he's going to get that big leaf down the hole, but fascinating. They were just fascinating insects. See them, and here they are again. They use the same, find these little, you know, they look like trails, just like a trail that you and I would walk on. It was, you know, beat down to the dirt, and just very cool, very cool. I'm not just a birder. I like insects. I like mammals. I like plants, and I'm easily distracted when I see some really cool things like this that's new to me. So trip highlights, like I said at the initial, at the beginning, had a great itinerary. It was a small group. We had 6 people plus the guide and driver, four birders, 2 company people, and the liaison. So we could have one table, dining room style. Everybody got a window seat in a vehicle, or we all got to sit in the Birdmobile, which is a smaller vehicle that we used at the Canopy Lodge or Canopy Tower. Outstanding birding. Even the guides got excited when we'd see things that were unique or rare to see. One time we got this bird called a twist wing, and Eliezer was so excited. He was showing with himself how it twists its wings. It was just a pretty neat thing. And our saber wing leaders got some lifers, so that was pretty cool. This guy up here in the right, this is one of the honey creepers. This is the shining honey creeper. It's one of the tanagers. And like I said, the guides were great. Eliezer comes from a family of birding guides. I think his brother had written one of the early local Panama guides. Their English was great. They knew where the roosts were, the day roosts for the owls and the putus, and Eliezer could imitate calls with his mouth, his whistles. It was just incredible. So I was kudos to the guides there. All right, thanks so much. And like I said, this talk actually originated from my Facebook posts. I like to do that when I'm on a tour like this, so that friends and family can keep track. And Rob tagged me as the social media queen of the trip. So I think with that, I will stop sharing and open back up to any questions. What else? Do I need to do something?
Yep, I can read them to you.
Okay.
We did have one message from Stephen Hall. He wanted to know he and his dad are flying to Panama in 2 weeks. They're going to go early for a cruise, and they have 1 full day. Pipeline Road and Metropolitan Park have been suggested by the guides. Which would you pick if your time is limited?
Well, I'm guessing the cruise comes out of Panama City. So Metropolitan Park would be right there. You wouldn't have to, to go to Pipeline Road. Pipeline Road was amazing. but it would be a longer drive. If you had all day, maybe Pipeline Road. Either of them would be good. I think Pipeline would probably be more productive. We spent all day on Pipeline Road, and we spent a morning at the Metropolitan Park. So out of Cologne, we are staying at Summit Resort near Kent. Yeah, I do Pipeline Road then, because you're closer to Pipeline than you are to the Metropolitan Park. Absolutely, sure.
Nice.
And
Laura
bird the areas
Taylor.
around that, the Summit Ponds and the ammo dump, that's all in that same area. You can like hit a couple spots on your way to Pipeline.
Neat. Laura Taylor wanted to know, toucans, are the male and females the same color?
Yes. Well, some of them, like the yellow-billed or the yellow-throated are males and females look the same. The barbets are different. The male and female looks different. Some of them, yeah, I think the keelbill, they both look the same, but maybe it's the barbets have a different male, female.
Yeah, female. And then looking at your picture, I wanted to know, did that green vine snake poison or paralyze that bird? Because it looked like it wasn't moving at all when I was trying to eat it.
I think they're venomous. The vine snakes are venomous because I think when we first got there was more commotion. I think the bird was trying to get away, and it obviously stopped when it was being swallowed. So I'm guessing you're right. We were just amazed and that we were in nature seeing stuff that you only see on TV, you know. It's pretty cool.
Yes, and very good. Yeah, I think Juanita Baker said she wants to go to the Canopy Tower to visit, and Derek said very informative, exciting. Linda wanted to know, does the tower/lodge accommodate dietary restrictions? Any dietary restrictions?
As far as I know, they do. I don't have any, so I didn't ask for, but most places I've been to, they've been very accommodating with whatever your needs are. So that's something I'd check in. If you were thinking about going there, I would send them a request, an inquiry about that. But I would be almost certain that they would take care of any problems or any requests that you had.
Now I have a question. The ammo dump pond, does that mean ammunition? Is that like an old war?
I think so. I think so. I don't know that's just the name of this ponds that we drove by, and let's stop by the ammo dump ponds. Okay. So I assume it was military related.
Interesting. Okay. What percentage of birds on the list were herd only?
I think I had that, at least for me. Percentage, but for me, I had 272 lifers and 11 were herd only. So a pretty low percentage. I have since done 2 other international trips, and a few of those have graduated to the seen category. So you mark your list, herd only, and then as you continue to travel, if you're lucky, you can change that title to seen. So
very good. All right. How early in the morning did the birding begin?
We always gathered at the like when we were at Canopy Tower, we always gathered up on the platform probably 5:30, 6 o'clock. The howler monkeys woke you up. So, and the there were geckos at night that were outside your window making lots of noise, but yeah, probably, excuse me, 5:30 or so, 6 o'clock. Do a little birding from the platform and then have a quick breakfast and then go off and do like our morning walk or tour.
Very good. And Delcy Rodriguez says, great presentation.
Thank you.
And I think we had a couple other ones here too that said that. Deborah Green says, great presentation.
Thanks, Deborah.
It was good. Very interesting to see the hearing about
Other
the
stuff.
birds and that. Oh, Linda wanted to know, do you need any special vaccines or take any malaria drugs before you went?
You know, I was trying to remember this. I did get my Hep A. I think I got the first vaccination before I went, hepatitis A. I don't think it was required, but I decided if I was going to do some traveling, that was a good one to get. I've since gotten the second one, and I'm pretty sure I took malaria pills beforehand. I don't think it was, again, I don't think that was necessary either, but I was a little concerned. And you took them before you left, and then you took them when you got back for a couple of weeks or something. So again, check the CDC sites about international traveling, and yeah, they'll tell you. This again was back in 2015, and it was, like I said, very safe traveling. I was with a group that, you know, covered you from when you arrived to when you left. So, which is the kind of traveling I feel very comfortable with. Very
good. Juanita Baker wanted to know, did the Canopy family arrange your trip and provide the guides?
Yes. The company out of Indiana worked with the Canopy family to set up all the arrangements, but they took care of all the ground transportation and the lodging and the meals and the guides. And the guide, Eliezer, stayed with us the whole time. His nephew joined us for a few days when we were at Canopy Lodge. So yes, it was all through the Canopy family.
Very good. And Juanita Baker did say for medicines, check with cdc.gov.
Right.
And Laura was wondering, what is the best time of year to go?
Whenever you can find a trip that looks good for you. I was worried about going in the fall. I was a little worried about going in the fall. It was a regular trip because of fall migration, hawk migration. But I kept reading, oh, it's the rainy season. Well, we had a couple of, you'd get a few rain showers, but it wasn't an all day soaking rain like you get here. And so we'd go in and maybe we'd bird by car, or we'd bird in the morning and then we'd come back for lunch. If it rained, we'd sit around the feeders and then we'd go back out. So if it was the rainy season, it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad thing. But there are tours that go to Panama all the time. So just pick the one that matches your schedule and your needs, and I think you'll be fine. Do your research. Yeah.
Yep. And Juanita says that anyone can work with the Canopy family directly too if they visit one of their locations.
Yes, my friend Jan her husband came down and joined her, and she ended up staying another week or so, and they went back to the lodge and booked, because they had booked several nights or 2 more nights, I think, there, and did some other tours that they had offered. So yes. And they have this, like I mentioned earlier, they have this cool site now called Canopy Camp, which is in the Darien. It's in the part of Panama closer to Colombia, which you actually are in these platform tents. They are very fancy, but these platform tents with your own little attached restroom and shower facilities, and that's a good spot to get the harpy eagle, amongst other things.
Ah,
But it's one of the other Canopy locations.
very cool. And Linda wants
Yeah.
to know what the temperature range was when you were there in October.
Oh, it was hot. Probably 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It was hot and humid. Yeah, it cooled down a little at night, but it was still pretty, it was pretty warm. You're down, you're down sea level most of the time, so, and you're in the tropics, so it was warm.
Any more questions?
Thanks, Sandy.
Yep, and I think two different Kathys also said very good, enjoyable presentation. And it was.
Perfect.
It's very
Good. We went a bit over, sorry about that.
Oh,
That's
that's
okay.
okay.
It's fun.
I get excited, I get talking, yeah.
All right, we'll look forward to another one from you sometime.
Yeah.
Uh-oh,
Uh-oh.
fun.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep,
Next trip.
good.
Great job.
Thank
All
you
right,
so
thanks,
much.